partnership here. We are recording that we are together in the work of seeking justice in this world. Today is June 18th. Tomorrow is June 19th. In other words, Juneteenth. And that will be the theme of what we are talking about today, a reflection upon a history in this nation that is dreadful, that is heartbreaking, that there is a lot more work to do. See, we've come quite far from days long ago. Step by arduous step we have taken, grasping the progress that has not been readily given. This country, whom some have deemed great, has been the source of tremendous suffering for so many, trampled by the gigantic stride of an empire that rarely heeds the cries of the oppressed. My God, why have you forsaken me, has been the plea of a people whom have long been bereft of justice. My God, why have you forsaken me, was the cry of Jesus on the cross. My God, why have you forsaken me, is the opening verse to Psalm 22, the same psalm in which David read earlier. Thank you for reading that very long psalm. I appreciate it. It's the plea of a desperate soul that is facing seemingly insurmountable odds to their survival. It is a plea made to a God that hopefully is listening. It's a plea of a people who hopefully will one day find freedom. Our nation's great transgression is slavery, which still has its impact on many today. In fact, slavery is still allowed here in the United States federally. The 13th Amendment, which supposedly abolished slavery, maintains a very small clause. Let me read the whole of the 13th Amendment to you, and I'll add some emphasis on a part that I want you to really pay attention to. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Now, there are some states, including Colorado, which has officially outlawed slavery in all scenarios. Colorado doing so in 2018. Yes, just 5 years ago, slavery became illegal here in the state of Colorado. In fact, the state of Florida is entertaining the idea right now, the idea of replenishing lost labor that was once performed by migrant workers with prisoners who would be forced to do the work with or without pay. In no uncertain terms, forced prison labor is literally, according to our laws, slavery. It's the abolition of slavery which we commemorate today, the day before Juneteenth. June 19th, 1865, 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation and a little over 2 months after the surrender of Robert E. Lee, was the day Union troops arrived in Galveston, Texas, one of the furthest points in the Confederacy, to proclaim that all slaves shall be set free. I can only imagine what that moment was like for the enslaved peoples there. They had pled for so long, probably echoing the psalmist, my God, why have you forsaken me? Praying, hoping that one day that they would be free at last. They had for so long felt the bitter sting of the whip, heard the clanking of their chains, and perhaps still having hope. Here's the thing though, the psalm doesn't end with, my God, why have you forsaken me? As David read earlier, there's a lot more to it. The psalmist later writes, as tweaked a little by me, for she did not scorn, she did not spurn the plea of the oppressed. She did not hide her face from them when they cried out to her. She listened. Certainly, God has listened to the cries of the oppressed, including those who have been enslaved by greedy, powerful people. See, human history has been scarred by the mechanisms of power. and oppression. There are people or groups of people that have obtained power by some means that has always left someone or some groups of people on the bottom. Who is in power and who is oppressed depends on the context, but because it is varied between time and place. Here in the U.S., it has been indigenous peoples, enslaved Africans, poor white folks, those in the LGBTQIA+ community, and more who have been on the bottom. On top, it has been, well, people that look like me. In fact, many of the labels that have been given to me by society have endowed me with an immense amount of privilege. I'm straight, I'm white, I'm cisgender, I am a man, I am Christian, I am able-bodied, I am a middle class, I am educated, and there's more labels that endow me with privilege. I have to recognize those. It's people like me who have historically been in positions of power in this country, CEOs, presidents, team leaders, principals, pastors, superintendents, board members, mayors, and so much more. And yes, indeed, we were the slave masters. I have to face the truth that that many of us here contain immense amounts and prolific amounts of privilege, to varying degrees, of course. We must be willing to face the truth because it is only in the truth that we can find freedom. For too long, we have ignored the impact of our ignorance, paying the price with the lives of the innocent. We must speak truth. And truth requires us to face the reality of systems of power and oppression. This needs to be a topic in which we discuss as a community, as a church, as a people. Some may ask, well, why is the topic of power and oppression important for us in this context, in this church context? Well, I believe it is particularly important to God. And it appears that the psalmist believes so too. My God, why have you forsaken me? See, God consistently blesses and is near to the oppressed. Jesus even tells a story about a king who chastises people, who ignored the plight of the poor, saying, "Didn't you know that it was me whom you ignored?" Likewise, the king blessed those who aided the needy, saying, "Didn't you know it was me whom you helped?" The way of the divine is flipped, topsy-turvy, where those on top of the socio-political power structure are furthest from the divine. And those on the bottom, the marginalized, the oppressed, are nearest to the divine. God has chosen to walk among those whom society has deemed worthless. God is a God of the oppressed, and I believe that the Creator is uniquely and particularly concerned with the plight of the oppressed. Too often we reduce the divine to an idea, something or someone to believe in, an intellectual assent. Now, I do believe that ideas are important. Our beliefs are important because we often become what we believe. Our ideas influence our actions. So we cannot ignore the importance of our beliefs, but our ideas, our imagination is only a small part of what makes us, us. Our lived realities, our actions, our deeds are our beliefs in action. The author of James in the Christian Scriptures writes this: "What good is it, friends, if someone claims to have faith but has no deeds? Can such faith save them? Suppose someone is without clothes and daily good. If one of you says to them, 'Go in peace, be warmed and be filled,' yet you do not give them what is necessary for their body, what use is that? In the same way, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead." Our spirituality is embodied. It is tangible, and part of that embodied presence is the systems of power and oppression that surround us. I would dare say that working with and for the oppressed is fundamental to what it means to be Christian. Time and time again throughout history, the church has been at its worst when it has become intertwined with political power. The Crusades, Spanish Inquisition, Manifest Destiny, slavery, and so much more. The church, with the cross as its symbol, has gone forth as a weapon of empire to persecute the powerless. Likewise, the church has been at its best when it is born from or allied with the politically powerless. James Cone, a black theologian and professor, puts it this way: the Christian community, therefore, is that community that freely becomes oppressed because they know that Jesus himself has defined humanity's liberation in the context of what happens to the little ones. Christians join the cause of the oppressed in the fight for justice, not because of some philosophical principle of the good or because of a religious feeling of sympathy for people in prison. Sympathy does not change the structures of injustice. The authentic identity of Christians with the poor is found in the claim which the Jesus encounter lays upon their own lifestyle, a claim that connects the word Christian with the liberation of the poor. Christians fight not for humanity in general, but for themselves and out of their love for the concrete human beings. James Cone is such an impactful author, and I bid you read his works. It's important to the lives of Christians today. We have to face the reality that the U.S. is an unjust empire for so many. Like I said earlier, the state of Florida is entertaining the idea of using prisoners, which isn't a new idea. We do that all across this country. The echoes of slavery are still echoing. So Juneteenth, yes, is a celebration because we are free, but we're not all free just quite yet. There is more work to do. And it's work that we can do together. I'll leave you with this, my friends. We must be wary of the temptation of power, which comes in many forms. Power is a corrupting force, one that leads to the abuse or neglect of the powerless. When we grasp onto it, we begin to seek to protect it, and that often means ignoring the plights of the powerless. But this is not the Christian way. We must begin on the margins. We must begin on the bottom and remain there. I promise you, whenever we see the oppressed, the poor, the powerless, the disinherited, we see the face of God. Amen.